For the final episode of the Hard Conversations, Let's Talk Equality, hosted by the Equal Opportunity Commission and the TTT. I'm your host, DK Roster. In this episode, we discuss the power on the unifying power of Carnival. Now, Carnival is known to us as the greatest show on earth because this living ritual is a unique expression of our culture, encapsulating music, dance, costumes, pageantry, and performance. While it is celebrated in various styles throughout the Greater Caribbean, there is one common thread. It has a unique ability to unite people no matter their age, sex, religion, ethnicity, or geographic origin. Throughout this exciting topic, each speaker will bring a different perspective as they share their experiences within the industry, as well as the challenges they face and areas for improvement. We have an electrifying panel present with us today. Now, first we have with us Ms. Paige de Leon. She is an advocate for the Trinidad and Tobago Promoters Association. She comes with 24 years of high-quality, diverse experience in the field of public affairs, from operation in the frontline media to being a senior crisis communications advisor to 3 successive prime ministers in Trinidad and Tobago, and now running a thriving global public affairs agency. Ms. De Leon has a deep understanding of how to build consensus among dynamically diverse groups. She possesses the gift of persuasiveness when crafting and delivering messages. So we thank you so much for your presence. We also have in studio Mr. Rubadiri Victor, founder and artistic director of the Wire Bend Folklore Theatre and the Artists Coalition of Trinidad and Tobago, TNT's primary artist representative body. Mr. Victor is a multimedia artist working in 8 mediums: painting, theatre, music, film, photography, carnival arts, writing and publishing, design and curation, and lecturing. He's also the author of Meditation on the Traditions, a photo essay on Trinidad Carnival's traditional masquerade, and publisher of Generation Lion magazine. He is currently in the middle of co-authoring and publishing a 4-coffee table book series called the Undisturbed Culture Series with celebrity and street photographer Mr. Dexter Brown. And last but not least in studio, it's Terry, Miss Terry Lyons. Miss Lyons is a dynamic, versatile vocalist who has created her legacy within the music industry as a talented and a successful singer, songwriter, and entertainer, both in the soca and calypso fraternity. Miss Lyons is the winner of the 2020 National Calypso Monarch, which earned her a spot in calypso history as the 5th woman to win the title since 1939. She reigned for 3 years holding this title. Now also, Miss Lyons has won the Queen of the Queens regional competition in 2022. Outside of music, she can be seen on the screen as the award-winning lead actress in the short film No Soca, No Life, which premiered in the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. Miss Lyons also envisioned and created the Terry Lyons Still Hair Foundation. So before we get into the conversation, though, I want to remind viewers that if you have been discriminated against, you can lodge a complaint with the Equal Opportunity Commission. Visit their website at www.equalopportunity.gov.tt for more details. Time now to get into the conversation. And once again, we want to thank you all for being here. And I want to start off with a kind of round-robin sort of format or style in terms of getting an idea to you. Your thoughts on the unifying power of Carnival, and you can even premise where it is you're coming from. Thank you. We start with you, please, Ms. De Leon.
Thank you so much, DK, for having me, and of course, thank you so much to all of your viewers and listeners in Trinidad and Tobago and around the world for joining us today. I think that to begin answering the question, what we would like to do is perhaps reframe what unity is and where it comes from. It lies, unfortunately now, I think, in the narrow words of political actors in our society. And if we reframe what unity is, then we have a much better understanding of how to achieve it. As human beings, what are we? Are we the sum of our thoughts, or are we the sum of our parts? Meaning, are we the sum of the things that we do? Unity is with us all the time. It's in the music that we listen to. It's in the art that we look at. It's in those beautiful scenes that we see at Carnival. And the concern we have about whether we have achieved unity is strange to me, because I think it's already there. And if I were to start from there, then perhaps the conversation changes if we reframe the argument about what unity actually is.
I like people who just turn up the conversation. So thank you for that. We'll start with you, please. Well, we'll continue with you, please, Mr. Victor.
Okay. Context. There are 300 Trinidad-style carnivals all over the planet. The two largest street festivals in the world are Trinidad style, in the Western world are Trinidad style carnivals, London and New York, Brooklyn. At their height, 4 million people are on the streets, right? That wasn't no public sector or private sector did that. That was the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the power of the people of Trinidad and Tobago did that. There's one New Orleans Carnival, one Venice Carnival, one Brazil Carnival. What is this thing that the Trinidad and Tobago Carnival has that makes it this compelling thing? It is probably the most magnetic festival on the planet Earth, right? The most contagious and magnetic festival. Probably more than, 15 million people taking part, easily on any given year. So we say that there, for some reason, the 5 festival tribes of the peoples of the world came to Trinidad. So you had from West Africa, you had the West Africans, Yoruba, Congo, Shanti. Those are the tribes that came. That's the festival seat of Africa. You had France at the time of Louis XVI, when France was at their most French, right? Those were the French who came to Trinidad. You had the Indians from Bengal and Bihar. That's the festival seat of India, right? 1 million people there with magical giant murtis on the streets and stuff. Both Hindu and Muslim coming here. This was the festival seat for the Amerindians, Native Americans, Kalinago and Warao, from Cuba all the way down to the South American mainland. They used to come here to consecrate their priests. 3 of the mountains here, divinities, Naparima, Ripo, El Tukush. So you could even say that there's some festival thing in the DNA of the land itself. All of these people came here and collabed and created this festival that we call the Carnival. That is the source of the unity, energy that permeates it and that has made it this phenomenal thing, because each one recognizing the other. When they heard the drums go off and over there, or they saw the murti go up, or the masquerade, or they're like, hey, what's that? We know that. So we always say that the first Trinidadians is actually, we call them no teeth men, right? The drummers and the artisans, who's the first ones who will cross the apartheid of colonial times, who will cross the lines they're not supposed to cross, you're not supposed to go by them people. Those fellas will cross and say, hey, they drink a grog, exchange a song, beat a thing. Those are the first Trinidadians after the Native Americans. And so I think that's the unifying power, is that the festival contained all that phenomenal magical energy. But the festival also has 2 currents in it from post-emancipation. There's the Mardi Gras energy, which is the European exclusive energy, the rope energy, all that kind of stuff which comes from exclusivity, the fertility side of the festival, those kinds of things. And then you have the Cambole, which is the African and the ethnic side, East Indian, Native American side, with the sacred and secular masquerade, the artistic kind of thing, the satirical stuff, the music, all those things, the traditional mass, all those things. Those 2 things have been in contention, right? And there are class issues and inclusion issues inside of that war. And unfortunately, we were in a period where the Mardi Gras is in ascendancy, where the middle class and upper class elements and the Mardi Gras energy has taken over most of the footprint and the resources of the carnival at the expense of the working class, black and brown Cambole. And if the carnival has to match the ideals of its origin as this inclusive, powerful, equal opportunity thing, then we have to deal with that.
And it's interesting you talk about that dialogue, that power relation between Mardi Gras and Cambole, and because there would even people sometimes saying that Cambole energy is a grounds energy. It comes from somewhere a little deeper than the horizontal of the road.
Bungee Road March.
And I even think about time to bring back a vibe. And with that, let's bring into the conversation, please, Ms. Lyons, in terms of your thoughts on the unifying power of Carnival.
My thoughts on the unifying power is it's not just the unity. It comes from history, right? This whole thing, it's tied into one another, the music, the people. As he said, it started from our ancestors for generations. And with that, now that unity started as a freedom thing, and now it is contagious to us people within the carnival, within the music, even outside of Trinidad and Tobago. It seems like it's contagious. I mean, I think it's our culture, individual persons. This is how we are. For instance, we will get up in the morning and we will tell total strangers, good morning, good evening, hi, because we have that sense of unity. Even if we don't know each other, we will be in a maxi and we'll start a whole conversation with somebody that you don't even know on a plane. You know, sometimes I want to sleep. And somebody just, and it has a lot to do with our ancestral traits. You understand? It's not just, I mean, I just try for people to understand this is not just carnival. This have to do a lot with our ancestral blood. It came from along with that unity, that what we learn came from there. Hence the reason why a lot of ethnic groups could reach on the road and be in such harmony. And yeah, after carnival, we go back like we don't know each other. But for that moment, we are our brother's keeper. And that accentuates even outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Because I will go anywhere in the world, and once there's a carnival, that is where the most unity lies. I always tell people I really hate it when I go to America and I have to travel or do anything on the subway because, as I said, I come from a culture of good morning, good evening, hi, what are you doing, shake hands, whatever. And I would be like, hi, good morning, everyone. But be like, it's like, Terry, I'm not accustomed to this. But these same people I will meet during the carnival time, the Labor Day time, and they will hug me up. Oh, you want water? You want that unifying bond? It's a cultural thing, and I think it's something that we're supposed to pay a lot of attention to, so it can resonate even outside of carnival, because we really need it. We're seeing it in schools, outside of Trinidad. You know, we really need it to reach a diaspora of people, for them not to just understand, but just feel that unity, because it just feels so good knowing that you have somebody watching your back, even on the road, even if you don't know them. You feel safe. There's some sort of safety that comes within the whole thing. You're walking on the road by yourself with your costume. You wouldn't do that on a normal day. But that sense of unity and feeling that, you know, well, all right, if anything happens to me, there's someone there. And that is an ancestral thing. That came from before I was even born. Because when I was born, that is just something in my blood that I know. And I think carnival is very important to us. And this part of carnival is very important for us to just teach and keep reminding people that, hey, it's not about the soca and the whining. There's a sense of unity that we should just keep throughout the year.
And you say that, and pause reason, and sometimes not even the words that you say, but just that sigh you take before you look to articulate what it is you're saying.
Because it really touches me. I mean, when you go out of Trinidad, it is a culture. You know, people be like, yeah, culture shock. Like, I was on my way here listening to the radio, and they were saying there's a doctor in Australia was speaking and saying that, you know, he used the word liming, but we understand what that means. Liming and having friends have a lot to do with your mental, and you know, that unity forum to do with your mental health. People who don't have friends or have that unity forum, you know, they tend to deal with a lot of depression and Carnival Day, nobody studies their worries.
And even like you hear the way that people talk about support circles and stuff.
Yes.
But we take a short break, we come back with more, and stay with us. You don't want to miss what we have in store for you.
TTT News, delivering more news more often to more people. Follow us on social media at TTT Live Online. Log on to www.ttt.live.
The Mother Church of the Anglican Diocese suffered significant damage during the earthquake of 2018. Efforts are underway to raise funds to restore this national heritage site. You are invited to make your donations with monthly deposits at any branch of the First Citizens Bank, account number 2696950, Marval Road Branch, in the name of the Incorporated Trustees of the Anglican Holy Trinity Cathedral Restoration.
Welcome back, and we remind you that you can reach out to the Equal Opportunity Commission at 672-0928 for free virtual, on-site or hybrid public outreach sessions and conciliation services. And those services, they will include discrimination in employment, sex discrimination, accommodating persons with disabilities, discrimination in education, accommodation, goods and services. And one of the things that all these points reminds me of is access. You would have spoken about that Mardi Gras, Campbell, and I think I'm going to be coming back to that all the time. No, but in terms of that sort of energy, Ms. De Leon, if we're looking at gap in unity, asking the question, what is unity? One of the things I want to ask you specifically is the gap you perceive in sponsored events versus things that would be powered by the Promoters Association. What are some of the things you see? How can we do it a little differently?
Okay, so to answer the question, let's go back a little bit about what Carnival is. One of the things we heard from the other two speakers and the other two guests, Carnival is a safe space. It's a safe space for Trinidadians. It's a safe space for everybody who comes. When we look at how we treat the festival, we do not treat it as though it is a safe space. We treat it as though it is a space of contention and dissonance, and it is precisely the opposite. Because of that treatment of the festival, where we place our resources and how we allocate our enthusiasm is tempered in the wrong way. And that directly answers your question about how to fill the gaps. Who are the people that we trust? Who are the people that we believe can create those safe spaces for us where it is comfortable for us to put our money? Because that's another conversation we never want to have. Where does the money go? Who does the money follow? Entrepreneurship, clever, strategic, well-orchestrated entrepreneurship ventures are resident in the event producers of Trinidad and Tobago. That is evident in how much success they achieve globally. What we have had, and what Rubadiri said as well as Ms. Lyons, is that this Carnival model has been taken and replicated globally. The people who have done that well are the ones who get the money put in their coffers. And what we have is a template, a model, a setup that works really, really, really well. And I go back to my original point of reframing the conversation of a lack of unity in Trinidad. Ms. Lyons has said it best. We have it. It's already here. Everybody sees it. So why do we not then take the unity that we have and amplify it throughout our politics, throughout our school system? Similarly, with the event production sector, we have success. the people who are finding that there is difficulty in getting those dollars attracted to their models have examples right in front of their faces, easily accessible examples and resources that they can use to replicate models of success, and then organically and via market forces to treat with the issue of the misallocation of resources. That then ties into Rubadiri's point about the war between the Camboulet and the Mardi Gras, because that's a conversation that we have all the time. Rubadiri's eloquent, so he was able to take it and put it into spiritual terms and say Mardi Gras and Camboulet, but it's really the war between the middle class and the other people. And economically, we know that our middle class is dissipating and our other classes are becoming larger. So that all of those things have consequences for us when we look at who we model, who do we listen to. Is our unity narrowly framed in the rhetoric of the political actors, or is it broadly framed in what we are doing? So when we look at what we're doing, who we're modeling what we do after, who is successful, who is not successful, and we then say, okay, you're successful, can we talk? What do I do? That then treats with your issue of closing the gap. The gap exists in us. It does not exist in the politicians or the people who are spending the money. The gap exists in us here. Every person has a domain. What do you do in your domain that is going to attract people to you? Or is what you're doing in your domain repelling people? The market is the market. COVID-19 came and it changed the entire world, and it changed everything that we want, need, and do. And it was very evident this year in how people responded to the music.
And that is one of the things that I want to get to, but I see you taking copious notes, Mr. Victor. So before we go to you, because I'm frightened, let me take that with you. Let me take that up with you, please, Ms. Lyons, because yes, they could take it. They could take your title, but they can't take your crown. Talk to me a little bit about the competitive nature, and this could be with us as individuals and on the larger scales, versus that competitive or the competition aspect in Carnival. Because I think sometimes we want to take both of them and put them together. You would have spoken about festivals, and a festival is, to me, is different from a competition. It's a different sort of energy. It's not me saying about Obia. So I'll let you talk about that. Thank you.
All right. With competition, it changes a person's whole aura. You will be as I said, it hampers with unity. Because you will be unified from the beginning, and from the time you mention competition, you find egos come out from everywhere, and it hampers the quality of what we're trying to put forth, which is the festival, right? We cannot forget that is a product of not just to sell, but a product of who we are. You understand me? I am giving you not just a festival, but a festival with meaning, a history background, where it comes from, because I mean Calypso is back in the slavery days where they use Calypso to educate some of the slaves who weren't literate. You understand me? So it's not just, oh yeah, we have a competition, let me beat you, let me take a crown. It's a product. So anytime I'm a part of a competition, I try to put on a show first. And as always tell everyone, every artist that coming up against me, let us have fun doing it. Let's not just, study the Obia side of it too much, I mean, that's part of our culture too, but by the end of the day, we have something to sell. We have foreigners coming into this country. So we don't want to showcase that it's a battle. We want to showcase that, this is our product, this is our history. Let it inform you. So when you take this information, you go back, you will be able to reinterpret what we have told properly, and you had enjoyed it. And a lot of artists get lost when the competition side. That's why I try to push a lot of artists to have their own concert, try to put more materials out there, because when you say, you don't see Beyonce and them having competitions, they have concerts and so we have to actually have an industry. As someone I was talking to some years ago, they were saying that we don't really have an industry, and a lot of people got offended about it, but it's true, right? We have to more market, and as she said, it's the gatekeepers. What are they doing? Where are the money being allocated? And in order for, I believe in order for anything to stay pure, you have to start in the schools. I was fortunate to have my both mom and dad as singers to pass that, not just the singing on, but the history on, the little knowledge that I have. But what about those who mothers are maybe lawyers, doctors, or whatever, and they're just sending them to school and that's it? Every school supposed to have a pan room. This is our national instrument. Every school, I don't care if it's a pay school, every school is whether they pick it up or not. But it's supposed to be taught about that. And coming back to the competition and the festival, I think more supposed to be generated in putting out a product as a festival, bringing back. I don't believe, some people say if it's not there's always room for new. Yeah, there's always for new, but improve. Don't get rid of some of them, like the stick fighting. I miss the stick fighting. I don't like to watch it too much. It's really frightening to me. But that have a part to do with our story. This is not just men fighting. This have a part to do with our history, where I come from. So I can tell my son, yo, this is not just stick fighting, but this is part of our history. And I could afford to, give him a rundown of how it started. So when foreigners come in, they could also understand, instead of just understanding the slavery part, they could understand things that was within that. We are selling a product that everybody else is emulating and trying to improve. As much as they are not as big as ours, you can see that they are putting in the thought, taking advice, bringing people on board to actually improve their product, their small product.
And to that point, it's interesting because sometimes it feels that what people take away is just the top layer, as opposed to saying, looking at Kalinda, looking at the fact that there's difference between somebody who is playing the mass and somebody who is making the mass. The rituals that go into that rope jab that stickmen will do 40 days before the carnival. That's not just lavaways because it's something that they do. But let me bring you into the conversation, please, Mr. Victor. And I also want to throw the context that you sometimes talk about 20-year cycles, because I also want to know if them cycles getting a little shorter now.
All right, well,
you take a deep breath.
I'm going to rewind to the point where we talk about the gap. We need to talk about the gap, right? The gap between the have and the have-nots and and that kind of stuff. That gap exists because there's an absence of grant funding and an enabling environment for the creative industries, right, of which the Carnival is part. So you find that the entire creative sector is in a mess because we don't have normal basic grant funding, arts councils and that kind of stuff. These are things that exist since the 1920s in other parts of the world, right? So we're 100 years behind. And the enabling environment of quotas, legislation, policy, institutions, and those kinds of things. Those are the things, the creative industry is the second largest industry on the planet right now, $2.2 trillion annually, right? It is the growth sector in the world. It's outstripped the extractive and manufacturing industries for the last 25 years. So we still on 19th century Victorian era oil and gas, doctor, lawyer. We still chain up on that as a society. But the rest of the planet has moved one past that. There are video game companies bigger than oil and gas companies who do one video game. There are skateboarders who are richer than big old barons and stuff. So the thing is that the rest of the planet has moved on, and yet still we who have creative capacity, which is our definitive advantage as a people, we have not built the infrastructure, our leadership class hasn't put in the infrastructure, and that's political will. So without that grant funding and that enabling environment, natural talent can't grow towards becoming industry. Right? So you just have isolated people with talent, but it can't cohere. All the other things around it can't cohere to become industry and monetize the talent. So the Carnival makes $1.3 billion for the economy at its height, right? 1.3 billion GDP. That's Forex, that's foreign exchange, right? And that's without trying, So the thing is, but who gets that money? Who makes that? Despite the fact, but what is it that draws all that forex? What is the spectacle that draws the forex? Who does that? Who creates the sound and the sonic force and the visual force and that kind of stuff? It's not those people who reaping the benefits and that kind of stuff. You know, the beverage companies and the telecoms and all those other things, the hotel industries and all of those other kinds of things. And then that top 3% or whatever that has, you know. So the thing is, in the absence of an enabling environment for a creative sector, it means that the only people, the route to access, because you don't have seed capital and grant funding and those kinds of things, is that you must have access to capital outside of the festival. So whereas before, the festival was created by villages, right? Up until the 1980s, before import substitution came in and people could bring on mass-produced clothes. Because you had a whole artisan class that used to clothe people and make people's things for their houses, whatever. In the 80s, when you had beginning of globalization and import substitution and all those kind of things, and those things came on, cheap imports came in, eradicated the artisan class, and destroyed all those small communities. Those communities were who created Carnival. So mass camps were African villages. They weren't globalized units of capital up to that time. So you would have literally millions of dollars of investment of energy to create bands and kings and queens and all the things that the golden age of the festival, when we look and when there were tens of thousands of people on the streets and hundreds of bands and the spectacle and all that kind of stuff. Those mass camps weren't paid units of labor. Those were communities who came together and throw in their hand for the glime and the grog and the talk and that kind of stuff.
That
and
sense
created,
of community.
Yeah, created those things. But post the 80s, when you had to now pay those people, the only people who could do that were people who already have capital. And in the absence of an enabling environment, and you have no grant funding, and you have no access for any of those other kinds of things, it means now that only the upper class and the middle class and stuff can enter as creators inside the carnival. And the people who created the carnival, who created the 300 Trinidad-style carnivals, who create the ground-level spectacle and all those kinds of things that draws people and brings people in and those kinds of things, they received next to nothing. So like a fancy Indian masquerader will invest $25,000 to create that bustle and that kind of stuff, which would probably be one of the most photographed items during the carnival, right? So we always say one traditional masquerader is worth 1,000 bikini and bead masqueraders, right? So you could have 1,000 bikini and things, say one Blue Devil after appear, then all cameras will move away from them and focus on the Blue Devil and the fancy Indian. That's the power of the traditional mask and those things. $25,000 invested on one costume. Imagine a band of such people. But your top prize is $2,000, right? $2,000 that they will get for downtown, uptown, whatever, and that kind of stuff. How is that for something that is at the heart of the spectacle of the carnival? Why is not the top prize for traditional masquerade like $100,000? Because it's a finite set of individuals. It's like, it's like you could count them on, it's like a 500, say 500 of them. If you had a tiered thing from 100,000 all the way down to and that kind of stuff, then those people now have a catchment area and those kinds of things. So one of the solutions could be you have the profiteers who make that 1.3 billion, who reap the rewards of that 1.3 billion, create a carnival tax operative from October to February, and you tax the profits of those people because they are firms, big multi-conglomerates that do billions of dollars worth of profits. 85% of their profits, 65% of their profits is during the carnival period, right? They are not generating the spectacle that makes those profits possible. Tax their profits and push those profits back to the creators, right? The stakeholders, the people who actually create things, the communities that were, so we just talk about 300 Trinidad-style carnivals, East Port of Spain, the midwife of Pan, Mas, and Calypso, that community, that midwife, Pan, Mas, and Calypso, that's responsible for the greatest export of Trinidad and Tobago, which is those carnivals, What does that community reap from the 300 Trinidad-style carnivals? That is its IP, that is all over the planet.
And with that question, we take a short break. When we come back, we're going to start to go a little faster between individuals. But we ask you to stay with us. We are talking about the unifying power of Carnival, the hard conversations, courtesy the Equal Opportunity Commission. Stay with us.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola, Lego, Nerf, and remote control vehicles, kids learning desks, and educational toys. Ride-ons, bikes, drones, science toys, and board games and puzzles. And a wide range of baby items. We also have the best devices for school, like laptops, the Amazon Fire 7 tablet, the Amazon Fire 8, 10, and Kids Edition tabs, as well as cases and accessories.
Visit us in-store at Movietown, Port of Spain, Forces Flagship McBean, or Eastgate Mall, Trin City, or shop online now at thebesttoys.com. No credit card required, and remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
अल्लाह करे कि कल का दिन आज से बेहतर हो।
पता नहीं रोशना क्यों हमें ऐसा लग रहा है कि जोया तो शायद फिर भी बच जाए। आदित्य हुड्डा इस बार मुश्किल में आ जाएंगे। एक सबूत इनके खिलाफ चुन चुन के निकाला इन लोगों ने। हर्षवर्धन हुड्डा को कोई करिश्मा ही करना पड़ेगा।
Music is a piece of art that goes into the ears and straight to the heart. Music is also considered the international language that crosses all barriers and unites all cultures. The Cross Caribbean Countdown is a popular fan-driven music countdown show that features the hottest lineup of Caribbean stars and music. While spotlighting Caribbean businesses, Thursdays at 10 p.m. and Fridays at 9 p.m. exclusively on TTT with yours truly, Junior K. We are something special, very special. And remember to keep your tempo up.
Welcome back to the Hard Conversations. We are speaking with Paige de Leon, Rubadiri Victor, and Terry Lyons, and we're looking at Carnival, the unifying power of Carnival. And with that, I want to throw this to you, please, Ms. Lyons, because it seems as though you do a lot of that in just your day-to-day, and you are somebody who is you're an individual, you're also a brand. You look at you have roles, manager, publicist, you posting stuff for yourself. Businesswoman, I want to blink and say Lions Lashes with Mink Wink, yeah. The clothing line as well as letting people know where you get your stuff. Like, see me looking at Vanessa's unique fit to say, okay, well, I want to have a conversation with her sometime, or saying, okay, well, this is where I got these boots and this is how much it costs. A lot of time people hold that knowledge to themselves. So in terms of just that unification of spreading that love, what are some of those things we can do to help bring the thing forward?
Connecting that with Carnival. One thing my mom has always said is very important to listen, especially to the cries of people who actually put in a lot of the work, as he says. And for this thing to work, there must be a unity and communication between the founders, the creators, the people who actually put in and build these things, the wire benders, and this is how far I am talking about, from the wire benders, even in fashion, because that is part of our culture, that's part of Carnival too, local fashion, the painting, everything, the craftsmen, back to the producers, back to the gatekeepers, as I call them. You understand? There are a lot of funding in Trinidad for our culture. Why is it so hard for the creatives to get through with it?
And I'll ask that question a little different way, because sometimes, and I'll ask you please, Mr. Leon, sometimes it feels as though there needs to be this upsurge of activity from the ground, and then people who are policymakers, gatekeepers say, oh, well, everybody wants this, well, let's try to get on this wave. What are some of those incremental things that you think need to be done to have that enabling environment a little more functional, a little more practical, a little more equitable, sorry?
It goes back to how we treat ourselves. Unity is rooted in love. When you have unity, when you have something that works well, a shift in the perception that gets people to want to move towards it happens in the heart, not in the mind. The hearts of the people of Trinidad and Tobago have very clearly said that Carnival is what we love. Our mass is what we love. Fashion is what we love. Music is what we love. So we know that we love this thing. And the people who have to put money into the thing are not connecting with the love. So where does that come from? Who is responsible for shaping the thoughts of people? And I think that more conversations at a level that people can hear is one of the ways that we can get people to move.
And I like you talking about people hearing, because sometimes it feels as though there's trees falling in the forest.
Yes.
So we know this, and we could pass around a plate, a collection plate, because everybody here, we're preaching to the converted. But how do you get non-initiates, people who don't know that there's so much levels of history, ritual, practice, sacrifice to the table, so that the people who have their hands on the screws or the gates or are able to say, okay, well, we're able to do this a little more. So it takes everyone forward in terms of that rising tide raising all boats, Mr. Victor.
Well, I'd say in terms of we need to democratize the information. I would say is that we need to, that ideal that's at the heart of Trinidad and Tobago, of that equality, of equity, of justice, of that beauty and majesty that we have the capacity for. We have produced like hundreds and hundreds of heroes, right? We've had more than 200 world records, right? This little 1-point-something million people, right? You know, enough Olympic gold medals and all this kind of stuff. But we don't have institutions where all of that legacy is not in institutions, is not in curriculum, is not in media, is not in monuments, is not in anything like that, right? So all the greats and stuff that have passed, all the great contributions, all the ideas, all those ideals, they're not there. And so we need to invest, let's say specifically for the Carnival, like First Citizens gave the building, the Penny Bank building, for the beginning of the Carnival and Steel Band Museum, and that's great. But that building is about the size of this room, right? Which is about the size of one King Carnival costume. What we really need is a football field style venue for the house the Carnival and Steel Band Museum, where that legacy of the 100 greatest costumes of all time there, and all the different things, all the pants shoots that done by Despers and this one and that one, and the history of the bands and stuff in multimedia and all those kind of things, and interactive exhibits, which by the way, we have Pantheon, the exhibition for the King and Queen Carnival costumes now on at Mille Fleurs that we put on to kind of give people an idea of what a best practice exhibit might feel like, where you have the King and Queen costumes and interactive exhibits and multimedia exhibits and those kinds of things and lectures, and all the information is there. And imagine that space 24/7, 365. So that's one thing that can give people that visceral jolt, you know, because it answers things like, what do you have to do on a Sunday, boy? Spaces like that, you know, you go down to and continually remind yourself of who we are, so we're more articulate about that.
And even talking about who we are as a people, and I'll go back to Pantheon, making sure that that plug is in. I think it's today that Rondell Benjamin is going to be there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he speaks about is how we harness the energy that is there latently, like you said, 5 festival tribes. And we do that in a manner that is outside of this seasonality.
Exactly.
And he also talks about the All Blacks. They do their haka. They have a competition here. They build a vibe.
Yeah.
And then we have that vibe. So we're able to, there's a conscious and intentional way that you tap into yourself.
We should say that Rondell Benjamin is the head of the stick fighters. He leads the stick fighters in Trinidad and Tobago and has been leading the renaissance in the stick fighting form and those kinds of things, and actually taking stick fight into the international martial arts community and those kinds of things, and also theorizing on the larger kind of ancestral implications in that particular form and stuff. So that's what he's talking about tonight. We have a lecture from 6 to 9 where Rondell is talking about the yard. He has this idea about the yard as a Bantu, Kikongo ancestral form that when Africans settle in a place, they create these things called yards. That and it's a form of resistance and settlement, and he has a whole science and metaphysics about it. And so, I mean, come out and check out at Mille Fleurs and check out the exhibition or check out Rondell's incredible, because that's what the thing is about. These are the things behind the things, right? So, you know, it's all the thing is all well and good, the jump up and whine and the la 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 and that kind of stuff. But these things about the yard and all those kinds of things are the things that support. The whole thing is based upon those things, you know, the barrack yard and the mass camp and the tenement yard and the Orisha yard and all those yards.
Yeah. And those were things that happened outside. They just continued happening. And let me just say, okay, well, yes, Rondell, in terms of the dreamer for the Bois Academy of Trinidad and Tobago, because if you talk about head of all, that might be asking for busted. But the Still Here Foundation is something that goes on.
Yeah.
Give us a little idea about that. Because you sang in housekeeping. Yeah. You're taking some of that money that you win, your winnings, and you set this up because it's something that you want to continue. So it's bigger than you. Give us a little idea about it.
It's bigger than us. We came into it here, and we want when we leave, it is still here, thriving, even better than when we were here. It's just like our kids. I always tell my son, when my son says, "Mama, I want to be like you," I say, I don't want you to be anything like me. I want you to be greater than me. When you look back at my accomplishment, it must be the size of a mustard seed, because you are so far ahead. You understand me? And that is how we're supposed to treat our culture. And with the house cleaning, it's a more or less touch one, touch all. As he said, it started in the community from back in the days. You understand? It started within the community. So why don't we invest back there? These are the people that are more passionate than anything else. They are the ones that just get things done with little to nothing and have it going right through the air. As he said, this is what's going on right through the air. The gatekeepers are not studying this until it comes close to Carnival again, to invest in it. And I believe you invest in the people who are already passionate about it and who has kept it going for so much of years. Because while we are sleeping, they are still up studying, okay, we have to do this. The Sailor Man, the Apache, and these things have story behind it. I have a lot of fire breathers on my phone, and they will be like, Terry, anytime. I was like, Carnival is done, and they are still studying to push these things, and nobody invests in these people.
And like you're talking about investing many times, if one of the key words of this conversation seems to be community. I know Joseph Remy, he says that homes in communities are very different from houses in areas. But looking at the fact that you straddle a few communities well, how do we start to craft messages so that the ideas get to where they're supposed to go, Ms. De Leon, so that it happens?
So one of the things that we do a lot, and I know earlier I said we need to have more conversations. We absolutely do need to have more conversations because community is important, and coalescing communities around ideology and around heart and love is very important. But in the context of solutions, which is really important because we do talk a lot, and Trinidad is not devoid of ideas. We have tons of ideas. We have amazingly talented people. Everybody speaks about things and they have good ideas. What we do not have is people who can execute. One of the challenges that we face in the Carnival space in particular is that The same old faces and people are being recycled over and over and over again, and they are no longer fit for purpose. And it's not the nicest thing to say, but it does have to be said now, because we found ourselves in a position where we are recycling old human beings who cannot move forward. We have to plan for the future of our festival. Rubadiri said it best earlier, and it's something that the TTPA continues to talk about. What is the attraction economy? What does it mean globally? When we are talking about diversifying our economy, we have to look at our creative sector. We have too many of the wrong people in the wrong places, square pegs in round holes. And one of the things about the Trinidad and Tobago Promoters Association, which is why we feel so passionate about what we do, and I said it earlier, we have been able to achieve success. That is because the right people have found their talent, they have found what they are good at, they know how to pick a good team, and they know how to execute and get things done. One of Trinidad and Tobago's top businessmen said to me, he sat down and he wrote a paper. The problem is we do not execute. We have an implementation deficit that is critical. And in terms of solutions for all these problems, we don't need to talk as much as we need to find the right people to execute things so we can move forward successfully. It is not impossible, but we seem to be unable to get it right. And so Carnival came, and everybody who wrote about Carnival complained. I heard no one talk about the successes. Look at Carnival this year. It was a success for several people. A lot of people had a wonderful time. The vibe was present. Who were the people who flew the flag? I've heard no one congratulate any of them. All we've done is complain. And the people who are executing well, they are being overlooked. And when you hear who's been posted here, who's been put here, who's been given this job, it is none of the people who have actually been successful. Why are we that way? And this is, I think, where the solution lies. Who are the people who are doing the thing that can get it right, that are being overlooked?
The only thing that missing there is they're too wicked. But we take a short break. Stay with us. We come back with more.
At TTT, our journalists are on the ground seeking the facts and reporting on the people, events, and issues that affect your life. We have Trinidad and Tobago covered. From Citrus to Charlottesville, Crown Point to Moruga, our news reaches further on any smart device. TTT News, first at 6:30 p.m. Follow us on social media at TTT Live Online. And for the latest updates, log on to www.ttt.live. TTT News, committed, accurate, relevant. TTT News, nightly at 6:30.
I am your mother,
aunt, grandmother,
guardian, friend, and I promise to protect you in all situations because someone has hurt you, violated you, harmed you,
abused you,
and you were brave enough to tell me.
You trusted me. You came to me for help,
to defend, for support, to protect you.
No amount of money
or bribes,
favors, or gifts will stop me.
You are most important to me.
You are worth more to me than any material thing.
I will do all in my power,
in my heart,
to make sure that you are taken care of and that justice is served and you thrive. Together, my daughter,
my son,
my child, we will live and love. I will protect you.
Break the silence. Report all cases of child sexual abuse.
Welcome back to the Hard Conversations. This is powered by the Equal Opportunity Commission of Trinidad and Tobago, reminding you that the 7 status grounds covered by the Equal Opportunity Act are race, ethnicity, religion, marital status, origin, including geographic origin, and sex. But in terms of wrapping up, let's take it. We start with you, please, Ms. Lyons, and we go around.
Okay. So, to continue the unity, of Carnival and for it to spread throughout the world continuously, we have to invest not within ourselves, but as we've said, the gatekeepers, invest in the culture. I believe people who are more connected to the culture are the ones we need to invest in more, because you not just know the culture, you believe in it, and you're willing to work throughout the year to make sure that it happens. You have to be connected to the culture in order to understand it and to be so passionate about it. So I'm very interested in the ones that are passionate about it, and that is where I believe the investment should go to. Just like my friend here, I've known him for years, and they are very much passionate about things, and they get things done with next to nothing, without any funding. And these are the people that we need to pay more attention to continue this unified bond that we call the festival, the mother of Carnival.
You see, I didn't raise that piece of terminology at all, but I'll ask you not to as well, Mr. Victor, in terms of your closing statement.
There's this incredible dream that's at the heart of Trinidad and Tobago, that it has all this magic and stuff and equality and all this stuff there, and then there's our reality. I said that we did an industrial read of the music sector a while ago, and what we discovered was there was one person who was making $56 million. There were about 6 people who were making between 1 to 2.5 million people. If you remove prize money, that dropped. There was one person who had gotten 6 million around there, and then everybody else was subsisting. That is not an industry, right? If you put the enablers in place, though, we identified there were at least 20 people that have been operating in the $50 million range. There were about 200 people that could have been operating in the $20 million range. And there were another 150 that could have been millionaires, so 6 millionaires. And then about 400 people in the 100,000 capacity. That's if you have enablers in place. That is the difference between an industry and I don't know, a crapo pond or something like that, which is what we have, right? We need to get serious, and that is something that only the leadership class could do. Only the leadership class could pass the legislation, 50% local content quotas, which most of the rest of the planet has in place. Only they could create an arts council with tiered, transparent grant funding, accessible by all creators right through the year, especially Carnival creators and stuff. Only they could put in the taxes and stuff and those things in place, create the institutions like the Carnival Steel Bar Museum with a warehouse facility and those things. Those things are the things that democratize the things on the ground, where all of a sudden instead of 156 millionaire, you might have 300, and it might be coming from the people on the hill who you're not expecting it from. Because right now, the geniuses are out there, but we are not facilitating them.
And you've been consistent with that message since days have cleared the way. So we have the final comments from you. Thanks, Mr. Leon.
Advocacy is key. When you advocate, you disrupt. When you advocate, you ask for change actively and you work towards achieving change. What we need in order to have unity is to foster change in our industry, the way it is administered, who we invest in, and how we see ourselves. That's a big part of it. And I go back to the original point of reframing the conversation about who we are, where we are going, and how we intend to get there in a way that is successful, that is sustainable. So we must disrupt.
This has been Hard Conversations, powered by the Equal Opportunities Commission. I'm DK Roster. Thank you for joining us. We also thank you, Terry Lyons, Rubadiri Victor, and Paige de Leon. Have a good one.
I solemnly pledge to dedicate my life to the service of my God and my country. I will honor my parents, my teachers, my leaders,
and my elders,
and those in authority. I will be clean and honest
in all my thoughts,
my words, and